Yeah, so my name's Andres Soto, and I grew up in Richmond. And I've been living in Benicia for the last 3.5 years, but I still identify myself as a Richmond person. And growing up in Richmond, at a school like Richmond High School, where the mascot is called the Oilers, you begin to understand the domination that a company like Chevron has had over the economy, the politics, and the culture of our community for over 100 years. So back in 2002 on Cinco de Mayo, myself and my two sons were victims of a police riot on 23rd Street. We were beaten and pepper sprayed and arrested. And I knew that police violence was just one symptom of a community where there is injustice that's rooted in economic injustice and political corruption. And that was Richmond. And so a bunch of folks got together and we created an organization called the Richmond Progressive Alliance and started running candidates for city council. And the 2016 election will be the 12th year of the Richmond Progressive Alliance running candidates. And if we can get one of our two candidates on there, for the first time, the Progressives will have a majority in the city of Richmond. And we will be able, thank you. And a big part of that has been Javanka. And believe me, in Richmond, when you're trying to make change, just like in a community like Vallejo, there are deep entrenched interests here, and there are cliques. And you have to be able to take all of these people on in a systematic fashion over time. And one by one, they fall. And eventually you will have other battles that will help expose the contradictions and the corruption of the people who are currently in power. And that's when you take them out, one by one, until you have the majority that you want that will serve the needs of this community. And that's what we've been doing in Richmond, and I'm extremely proud of that, because people from around the Bay and around the country have been looking at us and saying, how did they do it in a city like Richmond? You know, because when you look at the news, people would think it's all about violence and pollution. Well, yeah, that's still a problem. And the pollution is still a problem. And we still have council members who are willing to sell us out. But hopefully this November, we will take them out. And then very briefly, and I apologize in advance that I won't be able to stick around. My other life is I'm a musician, and I have a gig tonight down in Berkeley at 8 o'clock, so I got to get out of here in a little bit. But I wanted to share very quickly the story about Benicia. And so I moved there, and it's a very different place than Richmond. And you know, one of the things that struck me as both racist and classist that I've heard some Benicians, as they call themselves, say is, well, we don't want to be another Vallejo. And I said, I know what that means. And so, but when they were threatened with this crude by rail project, which could have blown up their town, that's when, you know, college-educated, middle-class white folks got together, and they had to fight the system too, because the system wasn't going to roll over just because they were middle-class white people. The system wants to make money. And so that was the struggle. And frankly, last Tuesday, our victory was completely unexpected, because a 3-2 vote back in April allowed the refinery to have a continuance until September so they could appeal to a federal agency that really had no business even being involved with this project. They're willing to threaten our local land use authority and our local police powers over our properties by appealing to this federal agency. But yet, it happened, and then Tuesday night when they were going to vote, Valero wanted an extension of that continuance beyond the election, so that their Valero 3, Mark Hughes, Christina Strawbridge, and Alan Schwartzman would not be subjected to the electorate. And, but, surprising everybody, at 3 p.m., that letter from the STB came out, and it said, we were right, that they had no rules prohibiting Benicia from prohibiting this project. And we got a 6-0 vote in the Planning Commission back in March. And then the other night, we got a 5-0 vote, and the pro-Valero council members had their tail between their legs because they knew their careers were on the line. And that's what you got to do. That's called accountability. That's called democracy. And it's not easy. That means you got to get out there on the streets. You got to knock on those doors. You got to pick up those phones and call people. You got to make them vote because people are complacent. They only care about something when their own ass is at risk. And that's what you got to do. You got to let them know that all these things are connected, and that's how we mobilize the people, and that's how we can overcome the kind of corporate power. And I think you people here in Vallejo are going to be able to do it. And just one little Richmond connection, and then I'll pass the mic on, is the guy who's the lobbyist promoting this project is a guy named Eric Zell. Grew up in Richmond. He's from Richmond. He is the registered lobbyist for Chevron in Richmond. He was the chair, he is the chair of the board of Doctors Medical Center, and he oversaw the closure of that hospital, so there's no public hospital for over 250,000 people in West Contra Costa County. Back in the early 2000s, he was promoting Indian casinos in places like North Richmond. And now he's trying to promote this here in Vallejo. Don't let him do it. Tell Eric Zell to get his tuchus back over there to Richmond and to leave you guys alone. And with that, I just want to thank you and wish you best of luck, and have a good night, everybody.
A little bit about me. I've been a council member for 2 terms so far. I've got, my term ends in 2018, but I remember when I moved, my wife and I moved to Richmond. Woohoo, all right, lesbians, all right. We moved to Richmond. One of the things one of the deciding factors, I mean, we knew there were issues at the time, but one of the deciding factors in moving there was we really wanted to be in a community that was incredibly diverse. You know, we were coming from Alameda, which, you know, wasn't very diverse. And we both worked in Richmond. But when we moved to Richmond, it was different. We'd been working there for years and years and years, but actually living in Richmond, you really had an opportunity to see what was going on. So I'd never, ever had issues, breathing issues, never had it. My stepfather was in the Air Force, so we moved a little bit of everywhere. So when I say that I've lived in a lot of places and never had breathing issues, it's a lot. So then we both started realizing, you know, why is our eyes running so much? You know, all these allergy type symptoms. We realized what was going on. We realized, well, we'd moved to a town with a big refinery in it. And so at that moment, we realized that, you know, wow, what is that connection between communities of color and these kinds of businesses? What is it about our communities that make them think that, you know, they can just come and do whatever they want to do and we'll just lie down? You know, what is that? Well, we know what it is. We know it's called racism. It's called environmental racism, right? And so both of us, having been the human beings that we've been all our lives, we felt that it was important to do something, to do our part. And so after living there for about a year, we ran into some good people. And the thing with her and I, we really love kind, just people. And so we started meeting a bunch of folks, and turns out a lot of these people were RPA members. And so they told us a little bit about what was going on, and we both ended up joining because we felt that it was really important. At the time, the RPA had just begun. There were some folks of color, but not a whole bunch. I mean, because let's face it, you know, if you have older white brothers and sisters, right, who are retired, have the energy, right, then you have communities of color, right, who are struggling with all kinds of trauma and all kinds of injustice, and you're just trying to eat, and you're just trying to, you know, get your kids an education, and you're just trying to do all these different things. You know, there's not a whole lot of room left to fight. There's not a lot of energy left to fight. You are worn down. you're worn down. So I am really happy that there was a group of folks with some time on their hands to say we are not going to allow Richmond to have this kind of racism inflicted upon it from this corporation called Chevron. So she and I got involved, and it made a difference, I think, because now we've got this perspective. We've got we are able to talk to our peers. We're able to talk to our friends. We are able to go into a community that sometimes, you know, may not be as welcoming, again, because of so much going on in your lives. And then you're raised to think, don't trust white people because they're out to get you. I mean, this is some of the mentality. And so I thought it was an opportunity that Spirit, the universe, gave myself, gave my wife. So I got involved with the NAACP, and I laugh because if some of you know, the NAACP in Richmond is in bed with Chevron. And we got involved in several different organizations. And the thing is, it became a little discouraging, but with perseverance, and so remember that word, that's the word here, with perseverance, right? People could come around because, and as Andres said, it takes us all talking to your neighbors, talking to your friends, and getting the message out. Because what this organization, this corporation called Chevron did with all its millions, very cleverly, so they're gonna be really clever. And it may not look the way you think it's gonna look, right? It could look in really insidious kinds of ways. For example, I was born in Panama. As you all know, Panama is a Latin American country, right? So that makes me Latina. So, but you look at me, right? I'm black. So the message through mailers, through people, you know, surrogates that they send out there, they would say, you know, Jovanka's not really black. You know she's Latina. You know she don't like black people. And that kept going out. So those are the little things that they do to discredit me, to keep me from winning that seat. And so as Nere said, it was coming from all kinds of ways because they have the money, they have the resources, right? But you can work, we, because we all are in this together. We're all in this together. There's no way that any one organization, any one group of people can do anything together, but together, when we come together as one, we can do anything. You can do anything. And so that is the message as well that I want to share with you, because going back to the rumors and she's not really Latina, and then of course in the Latina community it's like, well, she's not really Latina, she's black. And so getting it both ways, those are the cute little tricks that are often used to divide, because we all know, right, divide and conquer works. It works. Don't let them divide you. Go out to your neighbors, come together, collaborate with all of the organizations that you can think of, people who just want to be able to have clean air to breathe. And we all want clean air to breathe, do we not? Right? So I think that's the winning ticket. And so when we, in the 2010 election, which was the first year, there were so many, the issue was the casino. And so what we did was, Chevron and the casino folks, they had their money, they had their backers, but the community overwhelmingly, we knew that, didn't want a casino. And so what we said was, we had slate cards, and we were at the precincts, and we were telling people, if you don't want a casino, these are the candidates to vote for. And it was quick, and it was easy, and it worked. So I have a feeling that the majority of Vallejo does not want this. And I have a feeling you have some candidates, right, who are going to stand with you. So, right on. So get the word out about those candidates and remind people, if you do not want this cement, if you want to maintain our community, these are the candidates to vote for. So right on, power to the people.
Good evening, everybody. I know this is a Friday, and we could have been doing a whole lot funner things, rather than coming here. but it is a necessary. I wanted to make a correction, though. I'm a former ED of People for Children's Health. That organization folded, and it folded because of pressure from sources that were supposed to be helping our community. And as the other speakers talked about, tactics that were used to divide the environmental justice organizations and the advocates that were working. So just for that correction, my most important job is being a mother of 6. I am a 28-year resident of Vallejo. I have not chosen environmental justice, it chose me. My former community was Midway Village in Daly City. There are roughly 1,000 low-income people of color that live there. And unbeknownst to them, which has been about 30 years ago, they were moved there. It looked like a beautiful setting. They were moved there, low-income housing. And at that time, it wasn't Section 8. It was considered sliding scale affordable housing. Many working single families thought they moved into a beautiful setting only to find out that it had been contaminated by PG&E, over 350 contaminants in the soil. Kids were born with just some unspeakable things, and the families weren't told. We had to discover what had happened. I fortunately had moved away, only to find out that the garden that my mom had tried to dig up, my mother and stepfather, was full of these contaminants. Both of them died of cancer. And me being young at the time, they were telling me, you need to get your hands in this dirt. You know, this is the most healthiest way to live. We were raised with home gardens. And I remember saying, that's for old people. I can't be bothered with that. You know, I don't want to get my nails dirty. But now I have a garden and a home garden. And I realized most of the residents at Midway had home gardens, only to find out we were feeding our kids contaminated vegetables. Agencies knew it, elected officials knew it, and they did nothing about it. So when you talk about the former speakers that mentioned, and especially Julie, I have to say this. You guys have a real quiet, fierce warrior here. We've worked with Julie and UC Davis on environmental justice projects, and they've been one of the few academias that have not been afraid to roll up their sleeves and call it what it is, because that's part of it, is the denial. And I am going to warn you ahead of time, because I'm a little different speaker. I don't care about pissing off people who are here to hurt my community. And I call it out exactly as I see it. This is the poster child that's going on here, environmental racism. In 2002, 2003, we had to fight the liquefied natural gas plant that you guys were trying to put in South Vallejo. And thank goodness the surrounding communities, Richmond, I think we had Pinole, they also came forward saying, hey, what affects them affects us. I'm glad she mentioned the smell that we recently had. Now that was just airborne. Could not figure out where it came from, but it didn't only affect South Vallejo. It didn't only affect that area, it affected all of Vallejo, American Canyon, Benicia, and Napa. Now we're talking about putting in a cement plant in South Vallejo in an area that is the poorest, or so they say, because I know they got some folks that got some hidden money over there, but we're not going to talk about that. But technically, it is more of the poorest, the highest minority population. They didn't go, Orsom and Mr. Bryant, there he is. So everybody wave to Mr. Bryant here, because he's the owner of the proposed plant. They didn't take it to Benicia. They didn't take it to Napa. They want to bring it here to Vallejo, because we're supposed to be the throwaway society that people can do the easiest to, because normally we're the ones that are the least resistant. Now, we saw a lot of these stats here, and just to give you a little bit more background, because I really should write down my speeches, but I never do, because it's just, I have to speak from the heart, and I hate it to be that formal, because I'm just like you guys. You know, you're just like me. We are people fighting for our families and our community to not be exposed to these things, because environmental justice does have all these principles. I've been on all these boards, Cal EPA, Cal Federal EPA. I've even worked, believe it or not, because I know I'm cute and look a little younger than I am, but I even worked with Obama and them on the reference man standard, which is the toxic level that they use to identify an acceptable level of toxins that they use. For those of you that don't know, 154-pound white male, that's the standard that they use of acceptable toxins that a body can accept. They did not include children at the time. They did not include minorities who are already impacted. And in 2006, we went to Washington, D.C., and we worked with an institute. It was Energy and Environmental Research, and we worked with then Senator Obama on changing those standards. Because it was not fair, it still is not fair, and they allow these kind of things to come into our communities and hurt us. It takes the average one of us. We don't have to be these scientists, because I'm not a scientist, but I feel like one, because I've had to learn what PNAs are, polynuclear aromatics. I've had to learn what chromium-6 is. I had to learn that because that means survival. You know, lack of knowledge kills you. Knowledge is power, and that's why we're all here, because we need that knowledge. Environmental justice is about preventing harm before it starts. It's not all these 10 and 15 criterias after. You want to prevent it before it starts, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. We have a school, this school here where you're sitting, that's less than what, a quarter mile from the proposed site. And I'd like to ask Mr. Bryant, would you put your kids in this school and still build that cement plant there? Okay, are your kids here? Okay. Okay, so no, we can, we gonna do this. So, is your family living here in Vallejo? Oh. Okay, so if they don't live in Vallejo, your kids are not going to school here, and we know with the money that you have, it is no way you are going to allow your family to live in a toxic site like you are proposing for the people of Vallejo. I know, I already said I'm gonna piss off, so you asked me to come, I'm here. I had to clear out my Friday, so we getting it on. I heard Jovanka's speech, that really inspired me too, with all the battles that she's had. That is the life of an advocate, especially of color. You know, fortunately for me, I was raised in San Francisco. I wasn't taught to hate white people at all, because our community, we were a melting pot of everybody. But I have learned to distrust those that don't have a sense of justice and a sense of fairness, where they won't allow their families to be harmed like they will ours. And so what I do is I don't just only point at the problem, I try to get and be part of the solution, but what I won't be is bullshitted. And I won't be accepting you telling me that it's okay that you're gonna come here with a cement plant or a mill. I guess it's supposed to be environmentally better. We know we're gonna have particulate matter, we're gonna have all of the ships coming through, we're gonna have the trucks coming through. We know that our community has already been impacted enough. Who in this city, aside from the pastors that's been brought on board to accept this, and elected officials, who thought that it was okay to go behind people's back? I would just like to know, how does that make sense? We've already, as they mentioned, had Mare Island. We've already had this bill, but we've had a number of other things that have impacted our communities. We already got more than enough data that shows this city here, from the refineries, from CNA sugar, we're already impacted. Our breathing, our health is already impacted. We cannot afford another toxic, pollutant company to come not only in South Vallejo, but nowhere in Vallejo. Take it back or keep it. I'll finish it up. Take it back to Ireland, keep it in Ireland, or take it wherever you live, aside from Vallejo. Or if you really want to do business, we've got that beautiful waterway there. Why not put a healthy, we could come up with how about an international food court that stretches from one end to the other, and reserve part of it to build a garden where it could be from table to garden. Or some kind of tour ships that come through. But to put a cement plant there is not going to happen. Not on my watch and not on anyone else's. Thank you.
All right. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge that we do have the owner, Steve Bryant, here. It's not a debate with Mr. Bryant tonight. What we're trying to do is educate the community. I'm sure he'd be more than willing to stay afterwards to talk with anyone who has questions with him, but we're not going to have a debate with him up here, and so he's had opportunity to speak to the community on his issue. This is an opportunity for us to give education to the people that live in Vallejo so they have a choice and a voice in the matter. Our next speaker, I heard about her in the paper in Oakland, West Oakland, when they were trying to bring in the coal trains. When I read her name and saw her face, I said, I know this woman. I've known her for 30 years back, maybe more. I work with her sister. So she's been an advocate from way, way back, from the days of Berkeley. So when I found that she was part of the advocacy in West Oakland, talking about the asthma rates, trying to protect the people in West Oakland, I said, we have to have Ms. Margaret Gordon come to Vallejo. So without further ado, bring up Ms. Margaret Gordon. Now, Ms. Gordon is a co-director for the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. She connected asthma plaguing her community to pollution from the nearby port and improved the area's environmental health. Ms. Gordon is instrumental in the fight against coal in West Oakland. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. I know it's Friday, and y'all messing with my happy hour, all right? I'm messing with, LaDonna, y'all think LaDonna is frank? She learned it from me. All right, so y'all get ready for this bumpy ride, all right? And I want to say this here. Why would you come here? Mister, why would you come here? I mean, and please, y'all have to accept that he has his big boy panties on, that he has to understand that people are pissed off and mad, and if he don't understand that, he should not be here. He should not be here. And anybody else who feels that environmental justice is something to be played with, you shouldn't be here either. Because there's no I in we. There's no I in we. You guys, we here is trying to organize yourself to stop a harm to your neighborhood. I've been living in West Oakland since 1992, and I have been engaged and involved since 1992. I am a founder. I was just a neighborhood person who got involved in environmental justice in my neighborhood based on the fact of what happened to the Cypress Freeway in 1989 and the restructuring of the freeway. So this is my organization, this is my story, all right? First page, okay, second page. You need the lights, please. Okay, the No Coal campaign started 2 years ago. As we got the information out the newspaper that the developer for the old Army base, which is in West Oakland, wanted to bring a commodity called coal into the and back into the neighborhood. We've been fighting 20 plus years to get rid of particulate matter from the trucks, the soot from the trucks, and all of a sudden now we're gonna have another double whammy. So I had people calling me, Margaret, can you be involved? Can you come and talk about what's been happening at the Army base? Because I have been on the Army base project, one project, for 20 years. I have had one project in my life longer than I've had a husband. Okay? At various levels. 20 plus years since it closed in 1994. So the city went into a contract with a developer named Phil Degami. Phil Degami had told us that he was not going to bring coal into this on this project. We had him on tape. We have him in his own handwriting said this commodity was not going to happen. Was not going to be brought through rail. But nobody understood that he didn't have all his money for building this project. He never had all his money. All right? So one of the things that I'm going to put out to everybody, follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money in such a place where there is, if you understand what they could do, when they could do it, where they could do it, how they're going to do it, and how much is going to be put back into the community. All right? You got to know, follow the money. So we followed the money. We found out this $53 million that he was proposing to finish this project was on a contingency that he shipped coal into West Oakland to be exported from this port, the new port, because let me step back. The city of Oakland will have two ports. You have the Port of Oakland and a new port called Oakland Global Trade and Logistics that would be a private port ran by the city of Oakland. So we're going to have two ports. So after we found out that about this coal, maybe as a commodity coming through here, and this $53 million, we organized ourselves, not just locally, not just statewide, we organized ourselves all the way into Utah. All right? So we had to follow the people. That's another thing you have to do. You got to follow the people. You got to know where your people are, who's going to give you support. Then we also were able to have two legal eagles with us who showed us in the documentation that the city had that if there is a health and safety issue, you can call it out. And that's what we did. We called out the health and safety issue of this one commodity. We only wanted to talk about not just the import of it, but also we learned the storage of it. It was not about just bringing it in, it was the storage of it. So you guys need to understand the storage of the cement is an issue. That's your main issue, the storage of it. Now, how you gonna fight to stop the storage of it? This is what we did. We got our city council members to understand that there was a prohibited use of certain commodities in the city of Oakland. And one of them was coal, oil, that went back to 1924. So we had people doing that kind of research and giving us that information. So one of the things I'm gonna say again, you have to stick together, you have to stick together, you have to stick together. You have to know, got to know your base, you also got to be constantly engaging with folks. You got to be able to, how do you gonna perceive yourself in getting the information out? Information is a key thing, and then like LaDonna said, knowledge is power. The more knowledge you have, the more ways that you can intersect their will, because they're gonna have their will on you. You got to interject your will on them. You're there, and I'm gonna close this like I said earlier. There is no I in we. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here this evening. My name is Rusko Kayangyang. I represent you on the Vallejo School Board. This evening, I'll be helping moderate our question and answer session with our fantastic guest presenters. I'd like to first give a round of applause to LaDonna Williams, Councilmember Javanka Beckles, Professor Julie Sees from UC Davis, Margaret Gordon from West Oakland Indicators Educator, and Mr. Andre Soto from Communities for a Better Environment.